This, I hope, will be my final live stream on a Netflix show. Excuse me while I chomp down on some food. If you happen to be watching this, in fact. I know I'm streaming a little earlier than usual because I was working and got a flat tire, and I was on a bit of a hill, but it wasn't so bad that I couldn't put the parking brake on and lock the wheels. And then jacked it up and put the spare on it, the donut. So I'm driving home now from the donut. But I like these opportunities to hello, old school Dave. So the end of this, my show notes on the Netflix show, talks about how they said that something about earthquakes were designed to trigger Armageddon, or maybe somebody else said that. Yeah, some Dutch cult leader said that September 11th attacks were a sign of the end of the world, and I think I agree with him. But you know, signs to the next level with a it's a different time frame. Just like animals have a different time frame than humans have. And you know, most animals, well, maybe not most, but like they say, dogs, what is it, like, they think like it's 7 years to a dog, the life of a dog. It's only expected to be, what, a tenth of the life expectancy of a human? I don't know what it is, but it doesn't matter, because the next level, they're above mammals. So they're beyond mammals. So they don't have a life expectancy, because their vehicles don't die unless they want them to, like unless they have instructions to get rid of them, and then the next level just gives them another one, grows another one for them, because the soul isn't killed. Only the next level can kill a soul, and that's probably what's in store for the ones that are the space aliens, which I want to remind that the space aliens are souls, but that doesn't mean they don't have vehicles. They have vehicles, but they're vehicles that they took over. Which is common to a next level member to know how to do. It's not that hard to do, really. Well, I mean, it can be hard to do if the vehicles have a genetic code that doesn't want to be taken over. Well, that's rebellious. But if they're engineered to to be complacent or to believe in what their parents teach them. Parents meaning whoever put together the egg and the sperm in whatever way, test tubes or whatever way they did it on their spacecrafts to produce hybridized vehicles that then are raised in that environment on spacecrafts with the other vehicles that are there that have been there before, and so they become like part of the community and don't necessarily have any reason to go in another direction if they're never exposed to anything different than what they have on their spacecrafts. And so they're not exposed to what the next level is teaching. And that's the biggest influence on people to break away from their human limitations. So don't call them human equivalents because they haven't overcome their humanness. Even though they may have overcome aspects of their humanness, the souls I'm talking about, if they didn't finish that process and then they lost ground for whatever reason, which they did, well then they're still human. It's only when an individual has, let's say, 51% of mind from the next level. In other words, so every decision they make is made with a next level perspective. Okay, so wow, guy just tried to cut me off. He didn't see me. Guess it was in his blind spot. Right. I honked and he moved over. It's been a weird day. With things going wrong. I'm finishing my dinner, whatever you want to call it. Avocado and lettuce, mayonnaise and mustard, and a slice of cheese, wrap. Nothing too exciting. I like it. So anyway, I want to get to the Netflix show. The end of it, hopefully the last live stream regarding it. Some more. And this guy, I guess this Dutch cult leader, was saying that earthquakes were designed to trigger Armageddon. I mean, that's kind of a trivial aspect to it. Although Tiendo did pay attention to earthquakes over the years as being signs from the next level of upcoming recycling. So the next level has been sharing that with humans. You know, these natural disasters come in spurts. And now we're seeing the fires. You know, we've been seeing fires for a long time. Maybe it's been 10 years probably when the fires really started. If you look at the history, to the people that are probably keeping track of stuff, all the fires that were in Colorado, you know, major fires. I mean, it's not all the time that they've had these fires. yes, there's been forest fires all the time, pretty much, but it seems like the ones that started in the early 2000s and mid 2000s and the 2000 teens in Colorado, and then in New Mexico had some major fires, and Texas had a lot of major fires, and California and Oregon, and I don't know if Washington State had many. Montana. Holy shit, I'm going 90. I'm going to go 90 on a donut tire that I'm on. I just have to change my tire. I got it flat while I was working. But that's why I'm going home early. That's why I'm live streaming earlier than usual. But, so anyway, I'll go on to the next thing that they said was that we were looking for signs of the end of the world. I already talked about that last night. And we weren't really looking for signs of the end of the world. I mean, we knew they were going to happen. I mean, T and Doe knew they were going to happen, and then after T left, Doe knew they were going to happen. Sawyer, as someone who'd been in a number of these docs, I wanted to ask, what is your idea of a good Heaven's Gate documentary if you were in charge of the script? I would just tell the truth. I wouldn't try to slant it in any direction. It would just automatically be slanted towards what if they're right? Because that's a valid question. That's, and that's what most are not talking about at all. I mean, you very rarely see anybody say something like that. But in telling the truth, what I would be doing would be focusing on one part of a documentary would be focusing on all the misinformation. There's been a lot from 75, and then from the 90s, and then 94, and 95, 96, 97. So but just so I feel like that would be one part of it. Another part of it would be well, like as a script for that, in my mind, would be 88 Update. Because Doe wrote 88 Update in 1988 in order to correct misinformation that had been generated when he and T went public in 1975. 1974 and 5, but 5 essentially in April of 75. So to me, that's the best kind of script we could have in terms of a documentary. But there would be other things that I would want to do, like I'd like to make movies that wrote. One of them was in 1982, The Meeting, it was called. And it was shopped to Stanley Kubrick, I believe, indirectly maybe, through Gary Kirsch, Hollywood producer Gary Kirsch, who Cadoti knew. Cadoti was an early member of the group who had some difficulties that he didn't overcome, and so left the group. And Doe asked him to go to a halfway situation in Dallas, where Branody was living, and they didn't get along together in that circumstance. And so then Cadoti got his own place in the same complex. And there was a crew of individuals, mostly helpers, Libodi and Janodi, and Junodi, and Logodi, I think, that were keeping up with them. Because there were others that were also sent to that halfway situation. But Cadoti, when he was given the opportunity to return in 1994, didn't want to. Anyway, so Cadoti, who had worked on documentaries in Hollywood for Gary Kirsch, was part of the crew that wrote the first script. And T and Doe gave them their ideas and everything, and they just put it together. And Olodie was part of that crew, and he's known as Oliver Odenwood, and he actually drew all the illustrations for that meeting. And they even copyrighted those illustrations and the scripts. And Dan Sodi was also part of that 3-person crew. And he also left the group in the 90s and had joined early on in 1975 in April from the first meeting. And he had some problems with not getting a lot of attention, as because he got a lot of attention from T and Doe originally for a number of years, and then it was only periodic that he would get, and he was somebody that worked in Hollywood. He was on the cover of the Wheaties box because he was I guess what humans would call a good-looking lad, and so that's another difficulty that people have to overcome, wanting to be special, wanting to be a leader in the group, or seen as a leader in the group, which can be that can be as bad as anything, maybe even the worst kind of thing that can happen, because once you let that ego get to you, then let's say what Doe did is he had a task where they traveled together with Junodi as his partner, and they had a motorhome that Doe bought, and the 3 of them traveled in the motorhome together somewhat, and then Doe felt like that wasn't working for him anymore. This was after T had left in the 90s, early 90s, I think it was, and so Doe changed it, and he wasn't traveling anymore in the motorhome. He sold it, I believe. I'm not sure exactly. I imagine he sold it because there'd be no reason not to sell it. And Junodi and Dan Sodi were no longer in the task of helpers, and that really caused Junodi a lot of difficulty, because it was like she was demoted, and the influences would tell her that she was demoted, But she wasn't demoted. She was just given a different task. I mean, see, if you think that the tasks that we had are lesser, but we don't rise to the occasion of seeing those lesser tasks, lesser in terms of responsibility, in terms of working with your older member one-on-one, which is exciting to do. I know, I did it a little bit. I just did a little bit though. And but I would always want to do that. But when you're with the older member, you're really challenged because the influences will attack you, but they'll attack you more when you're not with your older member anymore, because you'll think that, you know, I'm not worthy anymore. Anyway, I guess I'm repeating myself, but because of that, anyway, that's about Dan Sodi. So the script was called The Meeting, and it was about the next level perspective of this task. And it was showing some experiences with the next level working with humans on Earth. We humans didn't know it. And they were having their difficulties in their human lives, but they were asking the next level in whatever terminology they used to help. Whatever they thought of as their highest power that they wanted help with from. And the next level hears those pleas when they're honest, please. Now they may wait for somebody to really show thirst in that regard before they give them help. And then when they give them help, it doesn't necessarily register to the person receiving it that was next level help. So I'm getting pretty close to my exit, so I want to go through the rest of these points. They said that the group believed that the comet was the sign of the time to leave. And I agree with that. They said that they came to believe that the companion was with it. Ben Zello talked about that. But they said right on their website that it was irrelevant whether there was a companion object or not. So to state it that way is inaccurate. They need to do their diligence and actually say the things that are true, instead of just letting Ben Zeller state what he believes that I guess he forgot about. Yes, at first when they heard the reports on Art Bell, they got a telescope and they were watching it. They were trying to look for the object. But then they returned the telescope and decided that it didn't matter, and that the Hale-Bopp comet was the sign of the time of their exit. And yes, it wasn't probably just coincidence that it happened over Passover and, you know, Easter, right before Easter Sunday. And I was on 60 Minutes. We were filming in New York City at the CBS studios where 60 Minutes is filmed or put together. The Saturday before Easter Sunday when it was broadcast. Anyway, so Chuck Shamrock, I think Shamrock, I'm not sure how to say his name right, but he had called into the Art Bell show saying that he had seen the companion object. And he wasn't alone. There were a bunch of amateur astronomers that were able to see the difference between the comet and the object that was with it. And then the Japanese photographed the object that was with the comet, and by their photograph analysis, you can see that the comet was the object that was with it visible before the comet went behind the sun, and not visible after it went behind the sun and it came out the other side, when then it was showing to have three tails, which was totally unusual also. But that Japanese photograph showed, the way that the light reacts with objects that were stars, and showed the stars look like they're oblong and they're smaller and they're less bright. Where the companion object, the alleged companion object, because I don't know if it was there or not, for sure, was pretty much the same shape as the comet and pretty much the same brightness, but smaller. But it didn't matter because Doe knew. He knew it the same way that he knew that he was in a human vehicle. The same way that I was listening to Dwight, his name is Ray, I forgot his last name, but he's the actor that played Dwight on the Office series. And he was talking about his spirituality. It was interesting. And that he's a Baha'i believer now, and he was an atheist for a while. And they asked him, how do you know that there's a God, a creator God, I guess. And he said, well, what if somebody asks me, I tell them I love my son, because he has a son. And what if they say to me, prove that you love your son? And he said, how can I prove that to somebody, somebody else? But I know that I love my son. And it's not a bad analogy, I don't think, So anyway, so I mean, there's things that we know. Now we can take that to an extreme and say that we know things that we don't. And we can think we know things that we don't. But that's where the whole idea of I could be wrong comes from. That the only things that we can really say we know in terms of the next level are the things that we feel like we know came from older members of the next level. And those things would all be consistent with the whole program, even though they get bastardized and distorted and diluted by the religions, so they don't even resemble. Okay, so let's see, is there anything else? Plan departure meticulously, pay their library fines, like a question mark, so why not? They took care of a lot of things. They were trying to always be honest about everything. I'm at the gate. And they said there were 2 nurses that administered pudding with drug and put plastic bags over their heads. But I didn't get it that way, that there were 2 nurses. Because I think it was Liv Artie is the only one that I knew was a registered nurse. I don't know if Song Artie was or Golden Artie. So maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm not sure about that. But then they said at the end of it that in the end they suffered a fate worse than death. Were actually considered dangerous, bizarre, but mostly were considered ridiculous. That's something no cult leader should accept. Take care of your image and become beloved. What a stupid thing to say. I mean, what an uninformed, unintelligent, ignoring the whole thing. I don't feel ridiculous. Doe didn't feel ridiculous. We know that people think we're ridiculous, but there's a lot of people in the world that I don't respect their opinion about me or them. And I've got a lot of reasons for that. Lying and deceit and manipulation and causing wars and stimulating profiteering and accumulating the spoils from wars and trapping people and enslaving people and manipulating them to believe in certain things and to believe in government as their lord and being willing to die for government. It doesn't mean that a person who is willing to die for their government is doing something wrong necessarily. In fact, that may be the next level's way of helping them recognize that there's something greater than themselves. That they can grow to be, and being of service is the greatest. Like to be humanitarian when the old members aren't present. In between, when they're present, is about the greatest thing we can do with our service. And but now, still, the older members are in a sense present because we have their information they left behind. All those tapes and everything. We have a massive amount of information available, and yet the lower forces are trying to keep it away from us. Through these lawsuits, even by the individuals that are running the website, that think they're doing it for T and Doe. And yet they want to keep it away from people. And so it's like a total hypocrisy in that. And that's what happens. The people that are attacked the most are the people that have the biggest chance of overcoming their humanness. Anyway, so they weren't dangerous, unless you think that the truth is dangerous, or you think that all life is based on these vehicles alone, and that there's nothing beyond the human kingdom. If that's your frame of mind, then, anybody that believes in anything besides what you can see, and we know that what we can see is very limited, even physically. They're deluding themselves, but that's okay, that's a choice. And yeah, it can be bizarre to think about this as true for somebody who's coming into it for the first time, when they have a lot of programming that, tells them that it's bizarre. And so I know I experienced that when I saw the first videos that Doe made in 1996, when I saw them after they left, after I had been detached from away from the group for a couple of years. And I thought, wow, this is hard to take, what Doe was saying in those videos. Last Chance video and Planet About to Be Recycled video. That's just, a summary of the names of those videos. But and the Doe's Final Exit as well. But when I was having that experience of thinking of it as bizarre, at the same time I knew that was influences. And I just had to give it a break, let it rest, and then move on until I could get enough mind into my vehicle to where it didn't disturb me to watch those videos, because I wasn't taking it as a direct challenge to my own failure to graduate with the classroom. Although, I'm not the judge of that. Maybe I needed this extra help. But, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that we want to serve. And it's not all or nothing, because there is no some form of there's no perfection. So, but yes, striving for perfection is the goal, because nobody's going to get into the next level without having perfected enough of the application of their mind while we're in a human vehicle. That's why we need these human vehicles, and should not, wouldn't be a good choice to try to, end our lives before we can show the next level and be of service to the next level and show them that we want to grow in their direction. Anyway, I guess that's enough said for that. So good night, folks.